How quickly you make decisions can affect the success or failure of your business. But not only do you have to be able to make decisions quickly, you also have to be able to make the right decisions. As a former engineer, I love to overthink everything. But over the past near decade of running a 7-figure business, I've developed a set of go-to rules to help me make the best decisions fast. That's what I want to share with you today to help you do the same. Starting with the 80-year gut check. Before he started Amazon, Jeff Bezos had a promising financial career in New York City. When he told his boss he wanted to start a company selling books on the internet, his boss took him on a walk in Central Park and told him, "That sounds like a really good idea, but it would be an even better idea for someone who didn't already have a really good job." This was a huge, life-changing decision, but Bezos only needed 48 hours to think it through, because his decision came down to just one question. Will I regret doing this at 80? Using this question can help you move past the should I or shouldn't I phase much faster. Because if you're not going to not regret doing something, then it doesn't really matter. But if you'll regret not doing it, that's when you move on to rule number 2. Because it's not just about blindly taking a risk when you want to do something. A mentor of mine once told me, "My job is not to make sure you get everything perfect. It's to make sure you don't make a mistake so big you can't recover from it." This philosophy has impacted every decision I've made since then. But it's different from the usual advice to just be optimistic and hope for the best, because you have to focus on the negative instead. What is the worst thing that could happen? For example, when I was building my first business on the side, I really wanted to leave my job. This might feel familiar to you, but the worst case scenario of doing that is pretty bad. You might run out of savings, still not have a business, and be forced to find another job, which might not even be as good as the one you left. Now you're out of money, time, and probably have some trauma from your failure too. If the worst case scenario is not acceptable to you, then do not do it. Forget that whole leap and a net will appear BS, because if it doesn't, then you are dead. High five to actually saying the truth, am I right? But that does not mean you have to give up on your dreams. This rule actually helps you achieve them because you're covering all your bases. You're planning for success and preparing for failure. Doing this is how I was able to have an $800,000 launch in my first year. I'd done a few previous launches, so I knew my strategy and my numbers. But I also knew that to hit my goal, which was actually a $1 million launch, I'd have to spend $80,000 on advertising. But I did not have that much cash sitting in my bank. Worst case scenario, if the launch completely failed, I would be out a lot of money I didn't have. Even with the potential of a $1 million launch, that was just too risky. But I did have $30,000 I'd be okay losing if the launch didn't work. Knowing this number was the linchpin. I broke my launch into 2 parts and spent $30,000 upfront. If the first half of the launch failed, I was just going to cut my losses because I could recover from that. But thankfully, the card open day alone was $100,000 in sales, which I took and invested back into the launch. But even knowing the worst case scenario and planning from that point isn't always enough, because sometimes you just need some good old-fashioned time. But in case you're tempted to give up too early, rule number 3 will help you stay the course until you hit your goal. Shout out to the triple constraint triangle, which is just a fancy way of saying what you can accomplish is the result of your time, money, and work. But I love how it simplifies the decision for you. How much time and money are you willing to put in to get faster results? This is how you break free from indecision, because you are in control. Or to quote the common law of business balance, good, fast, cheap, you get to choose too. This rule is especially helpful for deciding the right timing. For example, my 2 priorities most of the time are good and fast, which means that the right timing for me to implement a strategy is when I have the money to invest in doing it quickly and well. Every year for the first 5 years in this business, I check in with myself. Is it time to get serious about my YouTube channel? Every time, even though I wanted to, the answer was an easy no. Because I knew I'd need to be making more money in the business before I could do it good and fast, because I'd need to be able to invest in a video editor, designer, and consultants to help me create content specifically for YouTube. The year I hit the revenue I needed to do all that, it was go time. Unfortunately, not every situation will fit within these 3 rules, but that's when you get to use rule number 4 as the tiebreaker. The truth is, as a small business owner, you don't have the luxury of waiting to gather all the facts and analyze the entire situation before you make a decision. Thankfully, there's a part of your body that has 100 million neurons worth of processing power for you to fall back on. It's not your brain, but your gut. Research shows that when you make a decision intuitively, your brain works with your gut to make the best decision by analyzing your memories, learnings, and preferences. Basically, your intuition is like a muscle. The more you practice using it, the better and more accurate it gets. A great example of when to use this is when you're making a hiring or investment decision. You can analyze the facts all day long about a course you want to invest in or a person you want to hire. But at the end of the day, I like to go with my gut. Do I have a good feeling about this investment? But there is one big pitfall you want to look out for. I made this mistake when I invested in a consultant early on. I could have sworn my intuition was telling me it's a great choice, but what I didn't realize at the time was what I was actually thinking. I was afraid that if I didn't hire this person, I wouldn't be able to grow my business. When you mistake your fear for your intuition is when you can get taken down the wrong path. I wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars on working with this person because I was so stuck in fear, I couldn't hear my intuition, common sense, or values. But even though these days I'm a lot better at hearing my intuition, at the end of the day, we're human. That's why rule number 5 is so important. You know how for most of your friends, you can predict their response when you ask them for feedback? Oh, that's great. You should definitely do that. As nice as that is not my definition of a real friend. Before I share my definition, I'm super curious to hear yours. Please let me know in the comments, do you agree or disagree? The truth is, I don't have a lot of friends because I ask for one thing, which I do also give in return, but not a lot of people care enough to give it. Honesty. Tell me if you think I'm about to do something that you think is stupid. Call me out if you think I'm getting a little full of myself. I have less than this many friends who I can count on to give me their honest opinion like that. But those friends, they are ride and dies. When you're not 1,000% sure, check in with them. Often their honesty will simply be a reflection of what you're thinking, but maybe are afraid of facing. They'll also hold you to the decision you know is best, even when it's hard. You do not have to do it alone. But even with support, it's not always easy because no one but you can overcome one of the most common progress killers in your business. Personally, it was my hardest obstacle to overcome and took me years to figure out. I don't want that to happen to you. That's why in this next video, I break down my best tips for overcoming this obstacle in your own business so you can grow a lot faster and enjoy your business a lot more.